Hi, and welcome to Bandaloom. Today we're going to make this birthday present. To make this birthday present, you're going to use the clear Bandaloom, my colored Bandaloom, yellow and green bands, and our hook. First, you need to connect the two looms, because you do definitely need both of the looms in order to make this. So to do that, you're going to turn them to the side, and you'll notice that there are three pegs here, and there are 6 open spaces here. Now we're going to work by using the second space from the top and connect it to that side peg. And slide it down. Now you'll notice that my colored loom is slightly higher than my clear, and that's how I know that I've connected it properly. I'll also notice that all the pegs are lined up on a diagonal. Now I'm ready to begin working on this loom set. I'll turn the two around because I need to have them with arrows facing away from my body. And then I'm going to begin by taking 2 bands. For this one, we're going to work with 2 bands each time we work. So it'll be double bands the whole way. I'm going to start by working on my 3rd peg from the right. So it's 1, 2, 3. I'll put the double bands, and then I'm going to work from the top of that peg that I just covered and build across. Each side will have 2. So that's 1 double, 1 set of 2 bands, and then a second set of 2 bands. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the other side, now moving into the other loom. So again, starting from that same peg, 1 double, and then 2. Now we're ready to start working forward. The pattern, if you notice on the present, is 2 rows of green, a yellow center, and then 2 rows of green again with a yellow through the middle. So what we're going to do is our 2 green, starting on the right side, working from the peg on the end. So it's 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to transition to the yellow. So I'm taking 2 yellow, just 1 set, and then now back to the green for 3. Now we're going to repeat that step for the next row. So it becomes, the pattern is 3 green, 1 yellow, 3 green again. And remember, we're always grabbing 2 bands at a time. Now we're ready to start building the center yellow stripe of our present. To do that, we're going to take our double yellow bands, and we're going to work from the middle peg, the bottom of the V, and we're going to do that 8 times. Okay, once we've completed the 8 on this side, we're now ready to begin working on the other loom. It'll be an identical match to what we did on this side. Again, the pattern is 3 green, 1 yellow, 3 green. Oh, and I just noticed it happens. If you notice that you're forgetting to count, just back up. I have my 3, my 1 yellow, and now back to my 3 green. And then now the same thing for the last row. So at this point, you want to just double check that you've made your pattern of your 3, 1, 3, your solid stripe of 8, and then your 3, 1, 3 on this side. We're now ready for the next step. We're going to begin building triangles across our looms. To do that, we're going to use the green. Again, we're always doubling, so 2 greens. We're going to start on the left, top left peg. We're going to move from down and back up. So now we have our first triangle. Now for our second triangle, we're actually going to overlap. So this end will overlap the peg that we just worked on and then stretch across the next 3. And we're going to do that the whole way down. So we have our doubled green, stretched into a triangle, again, overlapping and creating another triangle. And we're going to keep using green 2 more times, so 2 more rows. Always overlapping on that center peg. Now, we want to switch for this stripe, this yellow stripe, to the yellow. Doing the same technique, I'm stretching it over and then overlapping. Now that we've made our single stripe, we can go back to the green for the remainder of the present. Now this is our last set. And you will notice that there are 2 pegs that are not part of this triangle pattern. So when you're done, you should double check just to make sure that both sides have the same amount of triangles, that they line up, and that you have 2 pegs that are not part of the triangle pattern. Now we can turn the loom around, and then we're going to temporarily put it to the side. We're going to put that to the side because we're actually going to start building the ribbons for our birthday present. And to do the ribbons, we're going to use the hook. So we are going to make yellow ribbons to match the tie. To do that, we're going to take our double yellow bands, and wrap them 3 times around the loom. And don't worry if you don't get it the first time. Now we're going to take and slide this off the hook, the wrapped pieces, onto our double yellow bands. If you didn't catch it the first time, don't worry, I'm going to actually do this one more time for the other ribbon. So now we have the 2 loops. We're going to feed the hook through the loop that's on our finger and pull that off. Now, to build onto this, we're going to take 2 more yellow. We're going to hook them, and then I like to use my pointer finger to anchor. We're now going to pinch. So again, we're going to pinch that little knot that we've made and then slide up and over. And then again, we're going to catch the other side. So now we have our first ribbon. And I'm going to slide that down to the hook. I'm going to place that at the, not the very top, the second to the top of the V shape. So I'm going to place it there and then push it down because there are quite a few bands there. Now I'm going to show you one more time for our second ribbon. We take the 2, we take our hook, slide it through. I always like to use my pointer finger to help brace and my other pointer finger to help anchor. We're going to wrap around 1 and through 2, wrap and through 3. Now I can slide my finger out. Take 2 bands. We're going to hook them and then slide these off. If you have to do it in sections, that's okay, as long as you slide all the pieces off and then push them down. Now I'm going to catch the hook through, and there I have my end knot. Again, now we're going to continue to build our ribbon by taking our 2 bands, hooking them onto the hook, pinching the knot like last time, and then sliding up into the center of the band. I'm now going to twist and push through and let my finger go. And there's our second. I'm actually going to do that one more time. So it looks nice to have the ribbons one slightly longer than the other. So again, 2 bands hooked on. Now I'm pinching the knot, sliding up and over, and then taking my hook through the other side and sliding my finger out. So that's what you should have right now. We're now going to take this piece and attach it to that same peg. And this is where it takes a little bit of work. To push it and then push it down. And I like to place one on one side, one on the other side. Now we have just one more step before we begin to hook all the bands. And this last step are to create end caps, and they help to keep these pieces from moving while we work. So what you do is you take single bands, you're going to go to the bottom corners and that bottom center, and we're going to wrap around the peg. And I like to do it 2 or 3 times. For this one, I think I'll do 3. So there. Again, I'm taking a green, sliding it over, twisting it, and then one more time. This really just keeps, it's not a mandatory step, but it really does work nicely to keep your work in place. So it's one that I like to do for most of my projects. Now you're ready to begin working. I'm going to work left to right, moving up each time. We're going to move up in the center. We're going to move up, stopping at our ribbons, but I'll show you that again in a second. So each row, we're going to work up to the top. You're going to reach through and pull the bottom bands. And there are quite a few bands, so sometimes you have to move them a little bit to find both. And this one. So there they are. You're gonna pull up and over, and then we're gonna repeat that, grabbing the 2 bottom bands, working forward, and then we have one more on this row. And some of them are going to start to be a little bit tougher because there's so many bands. Just keep coaxing them. So we have our first row completed. Now for the second row, there is one important step for you to be aware of. You see this bottom piece here? We actually want to work underneath of it, and we want to catch the 2 loops and pull up and over and across, up and over to the top peg. So we went under and over to the top peg. Now we can continue working the same way we did for the first row. And you're really just going to keep repeating the same step for the yellows, working up, the yellows may be a little bit tougher because you've got the 2 overlapping triangles, but just work them up. And then again, like I said, we're stopping at the peg with the ribbons. We're not going all the way to the top, not yet. So now for this row, we're going to do the same thing that we did over here. We're going to work underneath of that exposed band, grabbing the 2 bands on the peg above, pulling up and over to the peg above. And I just like to move that too. just to smooth it out. Now we can continue working again, all the way up. And then our final row, the same thing, grabbing the bottom bands and pulling them up. And here I'm seeing that one of them is giving me some resistance. If that happens, you can always just take your hook, push through the peg, roll it around, and that helps loosen up the peg, or loosen up the band. And then now we can continue straight up. At this stage, you should have all of the bands looped forward, as shown here. So all the loops are forward. Now, we need to work the sides, the diagonals, so we can begin to close the present. Doesn't matter which side you start on, left or right. I'm going to start on the left. So you're going to reach down, grab the two bottom bands, and then you're going to pull over and across to the next peg. And then you're going to repeat the same thing again. Grab the two bottom bands and move them across. And this you're probably going to want to use your fingers because there are so many bands on this peg, just to make sure you don't lose any. And then now the same thing with the right side. And then over to this peg. So now all the pegs have been looped except for the very top. Now to do this one, this is actually, I think, one of the most difficult steps, and only because there are so many bands here that you really do need to pay attention to which band you're grabbing to pull forward. You really want to make sure that you're grabbing this bottom band. And for that, what I do sometimes, and I love that the Bandaloom is clear that you can do this, you can look underneath and see where that bottom band is. So as you're grabbing, I like to just double check and make sure I'm grabbing the right one. So I'm going to flip it over again, reach through, and I need to bring it towards me a little bit to do that. And it does take a little bit of coaxing and a little bit of practice. And then again, I look underneath and I can see that I'm in fact moving the bottom bands. So I know I'm grabbing the right ones. I can pull them up and it's going to be tight. So you want to be gentle. All right. Definitely use your fingers to help guide you. And pull it up to the top. And then again, that same technique I showed you, where you can roll it around, do that. Oh, that's why I always double, because sometimes you lose a band, like I did there. But that's okay, because we doubled it. And I actually may even, and this will happen without a doubt. They are rubber bands after all. If I see something like this and I get a little nervous, that I might lose my whole project, and no one likes that, I'll come underneath, just as my own precaution, and put a band underneath it, which I know is a little hard to show you, but just like with lots of your bracelet techniques, I'm going to grab an extra band. This is my just in case. So I did that because don't want to lose all that good work, so I made an extra loop there. Get that broken band out of the way. And now I'm ready to start removing. I like to use the hook to remove the bands. And this may seem like a tedious step, but it really, for these charms, it does work best if you use the hook rather than just pull. Present's almost free. Now that we removed it from the loom, we can begin to move the rubber bands to give it the shape that we want it to have. And there you have it, your present.